Avengers Endgame was incredible. Truly magnificent. It wrapped up 22 films in the Infinity Saga, wrapping up 11 years of character development and bringing the end to the entire story while also setting up the future of the Marvel Universe. And that third act was just one awesome moment after another. I could not stop smiling with joy as soon as Cap cut that shield and then Portal's. It was just amazing. However, the film has one glaring flaw. One major issue that keeps it from being on my top favorite superhero films of all time list. And that issue is Professor Hulk. Hello and welcome to the Jack Disney Show, the show where we talk about everything film, comics, and of course, Disney. I'm your host, Jack Disney, and today I will be discussing my favorite Marvel character, the Hulk. Specifically, how he was the worst part of Avengers Endgame. Alright, so before I go into Avengers Endgame, I want to talk about the films leading up to it, going all the way back to the second MCU film ever made, The Incredible Hulk. Now, this is one of the most underrated Marvel films, and is actually my second favorite MCU film, right after Thor Ragnarok. Although, maybe I'm just a bit Hulk biased. The film takes place about 5 years after Hulk's origin, as this was released 5 years after the previous Hulk film, of which this served as sort of a reboot/sequel. It was kind of weird. Anyways, Banner wants nothing more than to get rid of the Hulk. And in the deleted opening of the film, we see him try to end it all right there. This being referenced later on in Avengers. The entire film is him trying to cure the Hulk, until in the end he finally realizes that the Hulk can be used for good, and he uses him to defeat the villain in the end. The final scene of the film is Bruce smiling with his eyes turning green, implying he has some sort of control now over the Hulk. The first Avengers film continues this theme, even though the actor has changed. When we catch up with Bruce, he is much calmer, even when in aggravating situations. He does lose control at one point due to Loki's plan, and then the Hulk is a very dangerous threat in that scene. But later we get this iconic moment showing his true control over the Hulk. We also see that Banner starts to open up to people besides just Betty, and forms new relationships, which all lay the groundwork for Age of Ultron, where we see the beginning of a Hulk and Black Widow romance that I actually really enjoyed and thought worked quite well. We also see in this film that Hulk realizes how destructive he actually is, and in the end, without Banner knowing, Hulk decides to leave Earth to protect them from himself. This leads us to Thor Ragnarok, which was actually intended to be part 1 of a Hulk trilogy, due to the fact that they couldn't make a movie about Hulk due to some weird rights issues. So in Ragnarok, Hulk has been living on the planet Sakaar for over 2 years, possibly even decades, as time works differently there, and Banner has not been seen since Age of Ultron. Hulk is significantly smarter now, more akin to a young child. This is the first time that Hulk isn't savage and terrifying like in previous films. He's evolved and more mature. He is living a happy life, and then Thor comes in and causes him to turn into Banner. Now, Banner is pretty messed up from being out of the loop for so many years, and in the end, he is forced to turn into Hulk, knowing that it may be permanent. Then, Infinity War. In this film, we get one of the most effective film openings ever, truly showing just how threatening Thanos is, as Hulk fights Thanos but is brutally beaten by him. And Hulk is supposed to be the strongest there is. While many didn't like this, I thought it was good just to show how strong Thanos truly is, and not only set up an interesting Avengers film where they may not win, but also set up an interesting story for the Hulk. The Hulk is knocked out and reverts back to Banner. Bruce soon discovers that he can't turn into Hulk. We see Hulk and Banner actually fighting each other, and Hulk refusing to come out. We never actually learn why though, and this is where the problems really begin for me, as the explanation was that Hulk hated that he was being used by Banner, and this was confirmed in deleted scenes, in director's interviews, but this wasn't really shown in the film itself, leading to the idea that Hulk was just scared. Although, it could be a combination of the two, and I'd say that works, but the idea is that it just wasn't clear enough. Also consider that this was the first time Hulk was ever beaten, so I guess he would be a bit messed up because of it. Anyways, Thanos attacks, snaps his fingers, and ends the movie, with Hulk never reappearing. This was quite disappointing, but we all knew it was setting up something big in Avengers Endgame. Now, in the comics, this is pretty much the same setup for Professor Hulk. In the comics, Bruce has multiple different split personalities due to having a traumatic childhood, which is actually shown in the 2003 Hulk film that I referred to earlier, which is technically not part of the MCU, but I would still recommend watching. This leads to 3 different personalities: Hulk, Bruce Banner, and the Grey Hulk, who is smarter than Hulk and has sort of a tough guy, rebellious teenager-like personality, and ends up becoming a mob enforcer. The 3 are always fighting for control, and in issue 376 it all comes to a head as Bruce starts to morph into strange mixes of the 3, as they're all fighting in his head. Finally, in issue 377, the 3 sit down and talk, confront their childhood issues, and all come together, mending Bruce's tortured mind and effectively ending the story arc that had begun over 300 issues before. This lasted for a good couple of years and led to some great stories, such as the one where in the post-apocalyptic future, Smart Hulk became the tyrant known as the Maestro, which is a story that I think it'd be really cool if the MCU adapted. Also, this version of Hulk in the comics is awesome! He kicks tail in the comics. He has Banner's intelligence as well as Hulk's strength, but in addition, he has a 1990s action hero-like arrogance to him. A sort of, there's no way I don't win this fight, and you better run type attitude. This would have been so cool to see on screen, and he could have possibly been one of the coolest characters in Avengers Endgame. Finally though, the status quo was reset after about 100 issues, so that the Hulk story could continue, but it would make the perfect ending for Hulk's story in the MCU were it done right, and we got to see these 2 characters reconcile and come together. Sure, we wouldn't have Grey Hulk, but it would be close enough, and it would really fit the story being built up since the first Hulk. But sadly, that's not what happened. The Hulk we get in Avengers Endgame is nothing like the awesome comic version, and is really more of a nerdy, dorky Shrek wannabe. So, for the first act of Avengers Endgame, Banner doesn't say or do much at all, and it's just kind of there. Okay, fair enough, there hasn't been that much time passed since Infinity War. But then 5 years pass, and we learn that Bruce and Hulk have merged together, just like Hulk 377. Well, this is great, right? The perfect ending for the character's arc. But here's the thing, we don't get to see it. Instead, we get the diner scene. Now, in the theater, I loved this scene. I could not stop laughing, and even now it's still pretty funny, mostly due to Paul Rudd's reactions. But then it gets pretty overly cringy, as Hulk says a bunch of dumb catchphrases, a lot of the humor is lost, and the worst crime of all, Hulk dabs. Add on top of that it skips over all the character development that was set up from Incredible Hulk to Avengers Infinity War, and then just laughs it off with the line about, 18 months in a Gamelot, blah blah blah. So then he's once again just kind of there for the whole movie, and does nothing but pushes some buttons, cracks a couple jokes, and nearly kills Scott. And makes the audience fall asleep with his time travel rant. Then we get to Act 2. Now, this act was truly incredible, with a lot of meaningful moments for all the characters. Tony reconciles with his father and gets to truly say goodbye to him. Steve is forced to say no to a life with Peggy once again, until, of course, in the end when he gets to be with Peggy. Nebula confronts her past. Thor reunites with his mom and has a heart-to-heart right before her death. Black Widow sacrifices her life to save Clint and the galaxy. Clint watches his best friend die after already losing his family. And Hulk discusses how time travel works. What? The only noteworthy thing that Hulk does in this film is the snap, which, I have to admit, is a pretty cool moment for the character. Showing that he was made for this, and making such a sacrifice is big. And it shows that what happened in Incredible Hulk matters. With him absorbing all that gamma energy, it's all built to this. Except, Hulk should be able to absorb the gamma like in the comics, as he can absorb infinite amounts and become stronger and stronger. But in the movie, he's permanently crippled. Again, what? Then we get the second moment that I actually did like, and that's Hulk lifting all the rubble and saving the Avengers, as it pays homage to an iconic image from Secret Wars, and that's pretty neat. And then we get to the worst part, the final battle. Now, what does Hulk do in this scene? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. he doesn't fight Thanos, not even fights armies or ships or anything. We see him throw a guy at one point. That's it. Then Captain Marvel, who has only had one film 3 months before this was released, gets tons of cool moments where she destroys ships and even goes toe-to-toe with Thanos, stealing an awesome moment from Hulk. In addition to all this, Hulk doesn't grow at all in the film, as his arc ends in the first 45 minutes of the 3-hour film, and happens off screen anyway.
Another thing that this movie failed to deliver on was paying off the Black Widow romance. It felt like they completely ignored this major development for both characters from the first two Joss Whedon Avengers films, and it was yet another failure of Avengers Endgame's Hulk. Again, let me reiterate, I love this film, but regardless, it failed the Hulk. And the worst part, Marvel knew. They knew that they needed to show Smart Hulk's origin, and in a deleted scene for Avengers Infinity War, we see during the fight Bruce Banner has with Cole Obsidian that he is arguing with Hulk just like in the film. But in this version of the film, in this deleted scene, they work it out, and it's a really great scene. I'll try to include the link in the description if you want to go check them out. We then would have gotten an epic moment to go along with Thor's epic landing in Wakanda, where Hulk bursts out of the Hulkbuster, as seen in many of these toys and promotions for the film, showing that they fully intended this to be a part of the film. This would have been followed by a scene where he talks to Black Widow, sort of acknowledging their past relationship. And she would have done the whole sun's getting real low, big guy, and then he would have revealed, yeah, no, I'm Smart Hulk now. I'm Bruce Banner and Hulk merged together. And that would have been a really sweet moment. It also adds in some cool Smart Hulk action. And not only that, but there was a planned Thanos rematch for the film, as seen in this concept art for the film. But for whatever reason, they cut all of this. And it ultimately makes the film feel like it's missing something. It could have been a truly epic story for the Hulk, with the bursting out of the Hulkbuster, to him reconciling with Black Widow, to seeing Hulk and Banner truly come together again after starting this whole story arc hating each other, with Bruce trying to kill himself just to get rid of the Hulk, and now they've truly become one. This could have been the greatest Hulk story ever put in film. Instead, Hulk dabbed. How could this have been fixed? Well, I've actually written my own pitch/script for how I would have rewritten the Avengers Endgame Hulk scenes and given a much better Hulk story, at least in my opinion. And if you want to hear that, then subscribe so you don't miss that episode of The Jack Disney Show coming out here in the next couple weeks. Until then, I'm Jack Disney, and I'll see you all next video.